never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Happy Friday to everybody out there. I don't know about you, but me personally, I am currently loving the weather that we have. It honestly, really, truly has nothing at all to do with football. It just so happens to be that the weather is perfect during football season, so they kind of go hand in hand. But me personally, I don't like hot weather or cold weather. So the 60s and 70s is my kind of weather. But today here on the channel, I want to talk some National Football League. I know we had week 1 last week, but it's still very early in the season. Had some good games last week, and one game that might have been the worst possible game in the history of the NFL. But another good Sunday and Monday of games coming up this weekend. Now, unlike college football, I ain't got to sit here and tell you what time the games are or what channel the games are on. Because unlike college football, which comes on about 975 different networks, the NFL, the 1 o'clock game, comes on 2 channels, CBS or Fox. The 4 o'clock games come on 2 channels, CBS or Fox. And then, of course, the Sunday night game comes on 1 network. And then the Monday night games come on 1 certain network. So it really doesn't matter whether it's CBS or Fox at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, because it's all about the market you live on. Every single game is on TV, but you're only going to have 1 in your market. At 1 o'clock on Sunday, we have the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. Now, the Seahawks coming here with an 0-1 record. The Lions are actually 1-0, and I know I mentioned this last year, but I'll go ahead and say it again. I think the Detroit Lions finally found themselves the right football coach. And for the first time in a long time, if you're a Lions fan, you should feel really good about the direction the team is going. Also, 1 o'clock on Sunday, we have the 1-0 Ravens and the 0-1 Bengals. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals got off to a slow start last year, but they recovered, and people forgot all about the slow start. So, for their sake, they better hope they don't get off to a slow start like that again this year, because you can't get off to that poor of a start year after year and continue to make it up. But there was only one team last weekend that looked worse than the Bengals, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a couple of minutes. Also, 1 o'clock, we have the 0-1 Colts and the 0-1 Texans. Now, of course, the Colts do not have Jonathan Taylor, but they actually looked really good last week for about 2.5 quarters, and then that was it. And then we have the Bears and the Bucks, the Chiefs and the Jaguars, also at 1 o'clock. Of course, the Jaguars come in this game at 1-0, and the Chiefs are 0-1. But it goes to show you how people will defend you as long as you've won something. And if you're a certain player or a certain team, once you get that win, people will defend you and have your back. But if you have not yet won the big game, people really don't defend you. And that's why the Chiefs have won the big game twice in the past 5 years, because they are a really, really, really good football team. We know that. They probably, top to bottom, have the best roster in the NFL. But, of course, right before the season started, they lost Kelsey, and everybody was up in arms, freaking out about, oh, my Lord, what's Mahomes going to do? He doesn't have Kelsey, and it's like, but they still have weapons all over the place. They're not going to miss Kelsey. They'll be fine. But if they look bad on offense, it's not Mahomes' fault. He doesn't have Kelsey, who is the heart and soul of the offense. But Justin Herbert can play for the Chargers, and he can look absolutely phenomenal, and the Chargers will lose, and it'll be his fault. There was a game last year, I forget exactly who they were playing, but there was a game last year where the Chargers were without their top 2 running backs and their top 3 wide receivers. Now, they lost the game, but Herbert put up fairly good numbers for a guy that doesn't have a run game at all and didn't have his top 3 receivers. And when the game was over, all you heard about was, what's wrong with Herbert? Why is he not winning? So it's like, man, the Chiefs lose one guy and you defend Mahomes. The Chargers basically had nobody all on their offense, but yet they lose, and it's Herbert's fault. And Herbert looked good this past Sunday. Their defense didn't, but he did. Then we had the battle of the unbeatens, the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons, and the Packers looked much, much better on offense without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had 0 300-yard passing games last year. 0. But yet everybody makes like he's some great, great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers ain't been great in about 6-7 years. He still, talent-wise, has the talent. But it seems like he continues to get weirder and weirder and weirder. And the weirder he gets, the less dominant he is on the football field. Then we have the Raiders and the Bills. At 1 o'clock, the Raiders are looking to get off to a 2-0 start. And then we have the aforementioned Chargers going up against the Titans. Now, these two teams couldn't have been more opposite this past Sunday. The Chargers got beat because their defense looked absolutely hideous, and the Titans' offense was absolutely hideous. So we're going to have the awful Chargers defense against the awful Titans offense. But the poor Titans, offensively, they look like they have no idea what football even is. And then we have the 49ers and the Rams at 4:05. The Giants and the Cardinals at 4:05. And the Cardinals looked bad last week, but nothing like the Giants. The Giants are the one team that looked worse than the Bengals last Sunday. I know it's no longer the preseason. It's now the regular season. But last week it looked like somebody forgot to tell the Giants that we're done with preseason. It's now the regular season. Because I honestly cannot remember the last time I saw an NFL team look that bad. And it wasn't that bad for a quarter or a series or a half. They looked absolutely pitiful from the time the game started to the time the game ended. And it's something you honestly, really, truly don't see a whole lot of. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of football fans prefer the NFL over college. Because if you look at college football on Saturdays, you always have a few games that are close. But most of the time in college football, about 75% of the games, the final score, the winning team wins by at least 17, 18 points. And a lot of people just don't like that because you waste your time watching the game that, for the most part, is over with by halftime. And the margin of victory is just so big that a lot of folk just don't like it. Whereas in the NFL, that doesn't happen. Since it's the best of the best and it's the best players in the world, most of the time, even when the worst team plays the best team might win by 2 touchdowns at the most. NFL games are usually always close, but the Giants looked flat out awful last week. They need to win this game bad, especially if they go out there again this week and they lose to the Cardinals and they don't score but 7 to 10 points on offense. That's brutal. Then we have the Jets and the Cowboys at 4:25. The Commanders and the Broncos at 4:25. And then the Sunday night game, we have the Dolphins and the Patriots. Now, we know that Tua is a phenomenal quarterback, and he looked good against the Chargers. I don't expect him to put up quite as good of numbers against the Patriots, but Tua's still going to put up some good numbers. And then the Monday night, we have 2 games. 7:15, we have the Saints and the Panthers. And at 8:15, we have the Browns and the Steelers. I was watching the college game last night between Memphis and Navy. And at one point, they were advertising that game coming up Monday night. And one is on one network. The other one is on another network, owned by the same company, but a different channel. And they were like, there's a doubleheader coming your way on Monday. That's not a doubleheader. A doubleheader is 2 games back to back. If the games are pretty much on simultaneously, that's not a doubleheader. But 7:15, Saints and Panthers. 8:15, Browns and Steelers. And Deshaun Watson, stats-wise, he didn't look great last week, but he made his teammates look better because the Browns, as a whole, looked good, played good, but Deshaun Watson's numbers were just average. But the Steelers looked pitiful too. The only thing that saved anybody from talking about how bad the Steelers looked, because they did look bad, was the fact that I think the Cardinals looked worse, the Bengals looked worse, and we know the Giants looked worse. So even though the Steelers looked bad, there was 3 teams that looked worse than they did. So that saved people from talking about the Steelers, but they looked pretty bad last week. So let's see if the Browns can get off to a 2-0 start coming up on Monday night as they face off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Any thoughts about any of these games, please feel free to let me know. Just like before college football started, I said that I honestly, really, truly thought there's probably about 14 teams in college football that could win the national championship, because to me there was no team that's just head and shoulders above everybody else. I feel kind of that way about the NFL. I know it's only 1 week into the season. Week 2, of course, started last night. But even though it's still early, I really can't look right now and tell you, hey, this team's the best team. This team's the best team. Because to me, every single team is just so evenly matched that there's probably about 20 teams that I legit think right now have a shot to win the Super Bowl. If you have any early NFL predictions, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I can always tell just by looking when someone is lying. I can also tell when they're standing. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.